Welcome to the OneStrand information session this morning. My name is Tammy Holter. I'm the Managing Director of OneStrand, and I also have joining me today presenter Stephen Graves from the AEC division over in Sandy, Oregon in the USA. Good morning, Stephen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi there, Stephen. Okay, so kicking off, today's session is of course on simplifying the topic of Simplified Technical English, or ASD-STE100, and specifically we want to cover off some of the details surrounding Issue 7. This session this morning will run for approximately about 45 minutes so that there's plenty of time for questions after we've gone through Stephen's slides. So a little bit of a background on OneStrand. So for those of you who have not recently attended any of our events, whether that be at S1000D conferences or webinar events, or seen any of the press announcements over the last 18 months or so, OneStrand is the combination of a shared vision of two industry leaders, being Absolute Data Group, or ADG, out of Brisbane, Australia, and AEC Inc. out of the US. Under the OneStrand brand, our companies can now provide our customers and partners with the most comprehensive set of solutions and services available for creating and managing your technical documentation and data. We offer the most cost-effective, user-friendly S1000D solutions in the marketplace, and our comprehensive set of tools provide our customers with everything they need to simply manage the lifecycle of their technical documentation. We offer over 30 years of experience in technical documentation services, combined with decades of experience developing information management software applications such as our R4I S1000D suite. And we work closely with regulatory agencies to deliver products and services that meet the stringent requirements of the defence and aerospace industries. And of course, we do this by earning our place each day with our customers, and we value our long-term relationships with them. For most of our customers and partners, OneStrand is more than just simply a solution provider, but we can act as a stakeholder as well with them, and we're part of their team. Now, this slide is just a very brief overview on the S1000D products, and in fact it's really just a snapshot of the core technology we have in our suite. The R4I CSDB, which of course is a common source database, allows our customers to create and manage, publish all of their critical content to IETPs, which can be HTML or the R4I Viewer IETP, which is the third product on the list. R4I Viewer is a royalty-free online and offline IETM or IETP viewer for advanced interactive electronic technical manuals. We also have, of course, our MobiTP viewer as well for Android and other devices. Our R4I Writer tool is our powerful XML authoring tool optimized specifically for the S1000D data formats, and it also comes in a personal edition if you don't want to purchase an entire CSTB, your contract writer, etc. There's a personal edition available for R4I Writer. R4I Binder is our very powerful drag and drop tool for creating your PDF version of your manuals, handbooks, large technical manuals. And although we do list there that it's from your S1000D content, which is obviously important, you can actually bind or produce PDF manuals for any HTML or XML content. So you might have legacy formats, ATA, 2200 mil standards. You can combine any content through our binding engine and produce a PDF manual. And we have IPD Manager, so R4I IPD, and it's a massive time-saving tool that allows you to look into either image repositories, databases or spreadsheets to generate IPD data modules on the fly and hand those drawings and IPD data modules into the CSDB ready for publishing. So saves hundreds of hours of creating this sort of content manually. And all of these products are available to be utilised in the cloud, and we have some base and core packages, some startup packages, which are available on a monthly subscription in the cloud under our hosted S1000D platform, and you can see that platform and the packages up at shop.onestrand.com. Some of the services we also offer, obviously Simplified Technical English training, or STE training and consulting services. We do provide around the topic of STE, and of course we have similar services around the S1000D capability as well that our customers tend to work with. So we have training in S1000D theory along with specifically S1000D authoring workshop. We can assist you with data conversion services from your legacy data formats. We assist customers with developing business rules, and if necessary we can even assist with performing your S1000D authoring and delivery services as well. So think of OneStrand as, even though we've got software that we can sell you, we also have a one-stop shop for assisting you from start to finish in your delivery of S1000D. Okay, so that takes care of the housekeeping items. So I would like to move on to giving you a little bit of a background on our presenter today, which of course, as mentioned, is Stephen Graves. And for those of you who have not met Stephen before, he is a training coordinator and writer in the AEC division of OneStrand in the US, and of course is now working under the OneStrand brand, so hence presenting for us today. Stephen started out the first 20 years of his working life troubleshooting and repairing aircraft avionics systems in the United States Air Force, and now has a total of 44 years experience in avionics and communication systems, troubleshooting and repair, with specifically the last 8 years as a technical instructor, along with 6 years in aviation narrative writing. Stephen is, of course, our trainer in Simplified Technical English, and often receives feedback from students such as things like, Steve was awesome, he made a very dry subject enjoyable, and he's a wealth of knowledge and very, very approachable. So on that note, I would like to hand over to Stephen this morning. Welcome, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. What I'd like to do first, before we get into too much of this that Simplified Technical English stuff, is to find out a little bit of a background, take a poll of whether or not you're currently working with Simplified Technical English. And so I guess we're going to have a poll set up to find that out.
And so it's a single choice. Yes, we're already using STE. No, we're not sure. And then we even have a fourth choice, which is I have previously but not right now. So that is the 4 options. It's a single choice. Okay, so we do have a good proportion of the room currently, so somewhere around 78% or so, and 22% of the people are a no. So we do actually have some people in the room, Stephen, who have never worked with STE, so I think that's probably handy. You were talking about possibly doing a little bit of an intro to the background of STE, which might be helpful for those people.
Yes, and that's good news. It will kind of give those people a little bit of information on what Simplified Technical English is and what it can do for us. So we have, if you look at this screen, when one of the sapiens enters a space encompassed by non-translucent structures, the initial operation to be concluded is the requirement to close the conductive contacts, allowing electrons to flow to the filament, producing a heated condition and the creation of emissions in the visual spectrum. That's quite a mouthful if you can kind of comprehend that. And to be quite truthful, I think sometimes I have used manuals where I have read something and it was very similar to that, and that's not a very easy thing for us to be able to digest, especially when we could have just said, if you can't see, turn the lights on. So what we can do is we can simplify when we're writing manuals. As you've heard from my background, that I have quite a number of years more as a manual user than I do as a manual writer. And I've used manuals that are good manuals, and I've used some manuals that were pretty bad as well. And so our goal as technical writers is to make sure that our manuals are good manuals. There's some quotes here from George Orwell, and he wrote this, George Orwell being the famous author of the book 1984. He wrote this Politics in the English Language in 1946 because he wasn't very happy with the way that writers were writing and trying to kind of convince people of things that weren't necessarily true. And so he came up with a set of rules for writers to be able to write simply. And these rules actually work pretty well for us as technical writers too. And the rules are: never use a metaphor, a simile, or other figure of speech which you are used to seeing in print. Never use a long word where a short one will do. If it's possible to cut a word out, always cut it out. Never use the passive where you can use the active. Never forget a phrase or never use a foreign phrase, a scientific word, or a jargon word if you can think of an everyday English equivalent. And break any of these rules sooner than say anything outright barbarous. And if you simplify your English, then you're freed from the worst follies of orthodoxy, and when you make a stupid remark, its stupidity will be obvious even to yourself. Now those rules actually are a pretty good basis for what we see now as Simplified Technical English. It's a specification that is a controlled language that has a restricted base vocabulary. It has a set of technical terms that are user-defined, a set of synonyms, non-approved terms, and those are also user-defined, restricted rules regarding grammar and style. It's a set of writing rules and a dictionary. So actually the spec is two different things. It's a set of rules, and then it's a dictionary of controlled vocabulary. And it's an international specification for the preparation of technical documentation in a controlled language. Writing rules and a dictionary of controlled vocabulary. Words are chosen for simplicity and ease of recognition. And the goal is that we have one rule, or one word, one meaning. As everyone knows, English a lot of times can have a lot of meanings for a single word. And so what we want to do to avoid confusion in Simplified Technical English is that we only use one meaning for a particular word, and the specification will tell us what meaning we can use that word for. We need to use, as far as spelling words, we need to use the American English spelling out of the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Now, Simplified Technical English has been around for longer than you might think. It was first started to be developed in 1986 by a number of aviation companies that realized, because English is the language of aviation, that not everyone in the world is native English speakers, and if we start using words that mean multiple things, or we start using words that have a lot of exceptions to them, that it was very difficult for people to translate. And it has been continually updated and refined since then until the latest version, which is issue 7, was released January of this year. Might be thinking, what can STE or Simplified Technical English do for me? Well, it can reduce your costs because text written in Simplified Technical English is better translatable. Much of the information that's written in Simplified Technical English can be reused. It's unambiguous, which reduces the risk of misinterpretation. An example of that is I was recently teaching a Simplified Technical English class to an engineer, and he was talking about a person that was using some of his documentation, kept coming to him and asking what a particular word was meant, because this person was not a native English speaker. And so after he explained it in simpler terms, the person came back and said, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. So we want to make sure that people can interpret what we're saying. Our quality improves because the readability of text increases when you write in Simplified Technical English. I can't even count the number of times that I have been reading a manual and I've read something in the manual over 5 different times and I still don't know what I was reading. And when that happens, what is the end user going to do? Well, they're going to have to go somewhere else to find out their information. So we want to prevent that from happening. By using Simplified Technical English, you comply with a standard. In other words, we're using the same language in everything. Customer satisfaction increases because it's easier to understand the manual. The end user is much happier with that. How does it work? We are limited. The variety of words that we use is limited. We use common, easy to understand words. We allow one word to have one meaning. We allow one word to only have one part of speech. We emphasize good writing practice. We standardize grammatical constructions. And that makes our Simplified Technical English written information easy for the end user to understand. Now, if you want to get the latest issue of ASD-STE100 Simplified Technical English, issue 7, you can go to ASD-STE100.org, then scroll down, or click on downloads, then scroll down the page, and then click down at the bottom of the page to request a copy. It will then give you a form to fill out, and it gets emailed in, and within about a day or so, you have a free copy of the Simplified Technical English issue 7.
Stephen, can you just repeat that web address? I'll just put it into the chat window for all of the attendees. So lay that on me again.
ASD STE100 .org.
Easy as that?
Yep.
There we go. So that's in the audience window. So if anyone needs to go there to download the STE specification, of course the issue 7 will automatically be the latest one available, yeah?
Yep. And in addition to that, if as you're using your Simplified Technical English issue 7 and you come up with a suggestion for a change on that same page, you can download a form to send to them to suggest a change so that the next issue might have your change in it.
So they interact with the public similar to our experience with the S1000D working group as well, don't they? It's,
yes,
yes. You can literally interact with them, ask them specific questions or suggest changes, and they do come through. One of the things, I just wanted to stop you there before you jump too deep into the issue 7 details, Stephen, was I noticed you highlighted that STE assists with translations, and that's a very, very important point. I think a lot of companies, when they need to provide a manual in multiple languages, whether the content is being translated by a group of individuals manually, so they're reading the content in English and then translating to a different language, or whether you're using automated tools running from that base point, and in particular with the automated tools, you know, if the content is clear and concise, it certainly makes life of the translator much simpler, because they understand the statement before they even go to translate it to another language. But with automated tools that do translations, you know, that American English component is very important. The tools on the market that do allow for those automatic translations do have an expectation that the content has been written with an American English and in a simplified format. And so the tools work much more efficiently if you've written to STE and the specs and standard details that abide by that. So that is important if you do have to prepare your content in multiple languages. It's a good start point to be using STE, which includes using American English. So just
absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Yes, you're in the software business, and you probably understand that better than I do.
Yes, yeah, it's certainly, you know, I think it's literally industry spec. And of course, you know, for S1000D, the expectation is that you're using STE as well. And again, it's, you know, because of that technical content being written, that there's associated specs. So there's a lot of S specs, you know, that work together around S1000D, and STE happens to be one of those. So thank you, Stephen. So let's have a look at issue 7, shall we?
Okay, yeah. In the issue 7, it actually made, like I said earlier, that the issue or the spec is in 2 different parts. It has a section that is a bunch of rules, basically grammatical and writing rules, and then it has a section that is a dictionary. So let's take a look first at the rules section, and we can see a few things. The text and layout of the rules section has been revised quite a bit. First off, with the old issue 6, there was a list of writing rules that had all the chapter's rules all grouped together at the beginning of the section of the spec, and I think they decided that was just pretty much redundant and was kind of useless. And so what they've done is they've deleted that all-encompassing list, and they have put a list of each chapter rules, only the chapter rules for the chapter that you're getting ready to start at the beginning of the chapter. So for chapter 1, we would have the rules for chapter 1. For chapter 2, we'd have the rules for chapter 2, and so on. And so they've done that at the beginning of each chapter. Some of the rules have been deleted, and their concepts have been included in other rules. Another thing that they've done is they have made the layout much more comprehensive as far as explanation and examples for the rules, and some of the section titles have also been changed. You can find a list of the changes that were done, and that list is from the 3rd page in the specification through the 8th page of the specification. It'll give you a summary of all the changes that happened. If we look here, this is an example of the summary of rules for a particular chapter. This happens to be for the Section 1 or Chapter 1. These are all the rules that are going to be covered in Chapter 1. And so you can see that those are all grouped together, and then each rule will then be broken down by itself with an explanation and a number of examples to help you to understand the rules better. I have a few examples of how they changed the rules to make them a little more simple. Here we can look at Rule 1.3, and we can see that what they've done is they've changed it to keep the approved meaning of a word in the dictionary. Do not use the word with any other meaning. And they've just shortened that down to use approved words only with their approved meanings. Another change that they've done, use only those verbs and adjectives shown in a dictionary, and you can use words that are technical names. They've shortened that down to use only the approved verbs and adjectives, and use words that you can include in the technical name category.
So basically, Stephen, they've taken on their own rules and they're writing in a more simplified format.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the main things that you'll see when you go to read the summary of changes is that they, as much as possible, they have actually applied Simplified Technical English to their own specification. Imagine that.
Oh, wow, what a concept, huh?
Yeah, well, you know, they've been doing this spec since 1986, and this is really the first time that they actually applied their own rules to their own spec. So it works. It works well. It made
someone must have stated or requested the obvious, hey?
You know, I think that request for changes must work.
Excellent.
So here's another thing, another rule. One of their rules that was, they said use consistent spelling. Well, what does consistent spelling mean? Now they're saying use the American English spelling to make it more specific. And we can see down here where they have combined rules. The old way had two different rules. Write only one instruction per sentence. Write no more than one instruction per sentence, only when there's more than one action needs to be done at the same time. What they've done is they have combined those into one rule and says write only one instruction in each sentence unless two or more actions must occur at the same time. So they've just condensed those rules down to from 2 to 1. And in condensing some of these rules and also in deleting that entire list from the beginning that had all the rules in the whole book all in one list, that gave them some more pages, and yet if you look at the spec, it's actually longer than it was before, and the reason for that is because of the increase in their explanation of the rules and the examples that they've given for the rules. Here is an example of how they have it formatted. Now you can see there's the rule, and then it explains it, and we get examples, and every single rule in the spec now has examples to help us to understand. Because sometimes you can explain things all day long, but unless you have a simple example to show you what they mean, it doesn't, you know, it's not going to do a lot of good for you. So, and like I said, where possible and practical, the language and writing style obey the rules and the dictionary of the Simplified Technical English. So that brings us now to the dictionary. The dictionary section of the specification, they have changed, and in column 1, the dictionary is actually set up in 4 separate columns. It has a part of speech column or a word, an approved meaning or alternative column, an approved example, and a not approved example. And a lot of times that not approved example helps me out as much as the approved example because it tells me what I shouldn't do. But in column 1, they have changed keyword and it's replaced by word. Another thing that they've done is each word section now is separated by a line, which helps to make it easier for you to recognize what information goes with that word. And I'm going to show you an example in just a minute that shows you how they've done that. Each suggested alternative now has a part of speech that can be used for added to it. And each suggested alternative has examples that are lined up with it, and those examples have a subline under them to help to separate them as well. And we can see all of that in this example of a page in the dictionary. We can see that up at the top they've changed the keyword to word, and we can also see that each approved alternative word, because this is the word over here, if it's in lowercase letters, it's not an approved word, and the next word is an approved alternative for that word, and it tells us what part of speech we can use that word for. And then we have an approved example and a not approved example, and we can see that that part of speech, we have correspond here as an example, and we can use agree as a verb, and we can use that by this example. And we can see that there's also, we can use same. That's another approved alternative. And we have the approved example and not approved example of using same.
This
and
is much more usable, isn't it, Stephen?
It's so much more easy to read.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's nice not just to get the words that you should use, but to get some actual examples of it in use, along with, oh, by the way, and here's a classic example of it done badly. This is a non-approved version. You know, don't do it like this. It's good to sort of, you know, have real examples, real world sort of scenarios. I think that makes it a whole lot more relatable for people. And then, like you said, the layout, just the way they've laid it out with the grouping of the alternative words and stuff is much more helpful, I think.
Oh yeah, because before these lines weren't on there, and sometimes it could get a little bit confusing where one word was ending and the next one was starting. And as well, the examples were not lined up with the
actual words. Yeah. Yeah. So someone's just asked as well, Stephen, you know, you've mentioned there's obviously removal of words, and we can see there's more alternative words that have been listed. Did we actually get any new words assigned to the dictionary as available choices moving forward? Did we see any new words in that list?
We did. Yes,
Excellent.
We did. And,
okay.
and if you look at, and if they go to issue 7 and look at those page, the 3rd through the 8th page, there is a list, and it'll show you what words they added.
So the new ones are detailed straight away. Excellent. That's good to know.
And some of the approved alternatives got deleted too, or changed.
Okay, so we did get changed, removed, and new on all fronts. Excellent.
Yes. And so that it's just, the dictionary now is so much easier to use than it was before. Another thing that the old spec had was these areas where it had an approved meaning. In other words, what the word means. They were, for some reason, they had this TN after it, and it really didn't mean anything. So they've taken those out, which that was a little bit confusing before. Again, I've said that they've added and they've deleted words from the dictionary, and where possible and practical, they have removed quotation marks from the text definitions and the approved examples. I think that the new layout of both the rule section and the dictionary section of the specification will make the specification easier for writers to understand. Any change that make the specification easier, I think, also makes the writers produce a more understandable manual for the end user. And having been an end user, and I'm still an end user after 44 years, it's an awful lot nicer when you have a manual that is clear and concise and easy to understand than to have one that you read and it's just confusing to you. If we have any questions, you're free to ask those.
Okay, so we've got our first question in, Stephen. Well, actually, it's not the first thing. You had one a little earlier, but what advice do you have for a publication that is in progress, currently using issue 6? So they're, 1.5 years into the process, and, now we've got, of course, a new version. Are there any benefits to switching or not switching specifically? So
I don't think it would be that hard to switch. I think it depends on what type of writing software you're using. Most software you can use find and replace type things, and you could probably go to issue 7 to that first section and just maybe do a search and see if some of those words come up. And
so I guess if there's any they've removed in that list, you could just go search your documents and see if those words happen to be in there, right? And then decide.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess you could always take the approach as well, like a lot of people do sort of with any transition, whether it's moving to a new XML structure, schema type, etc. Is you could just do it as you go to update a manual. So the next time it's updated, you could say, oh, we'll also upgrade it to issue 7 of STE, and or for some people it's a forced requirement, right? It might be, oh, you must be delivering to STE issue 7 when you deliver the documentation, so you don't have a choice.
Yeah, and that might depend on your customer.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
Here at AEC, we're a couple of years into our transition to Simplified Technical English, and we still have some sections that, because it's a pretty big process to convert already written stuff in, data into Simplified Technical English. And so we're basically doing it by attrition. As we have to make revisions, we then do the Simplified Technical English at the same time. We're a lot farther down the road than we were 2 years ago, though.
And of course, it depends on each customer as well, because you've got a broad base of customers, and some it's been mandatory, and so you've done it from scratch, and others it hasn't been, right? It's been a industry trend, so to sort of move that way, absolutely, particularly with aircraft documentation, as you said. So,
yeah, and I can tell you, it's much easier to write Simplified Technical English from the get-go, from the start, than it is to go to already created
content,
and then changing it.
I can imagine I gather the average document probably has a lower word count with Simplified Technical English because of that, simple, clear, concise, instructions. There's no, waffling. I'm assuming the average document, it does get smaller.
Yes, it has a smaller word count, and in fact, we're limited with Simplified Technical English. We're limited on how many words we can include in a sentence. We're limited on how many sentences we can put in a paragraph. And
That's
so,
true. Yeah.
basically, just like George Orwell said, if you can get rid of a word, get rid of it. You know, if it's not necessary, don't put it in there to confuse things.
Yeah, don't waffle. We're not being paid by the word, right? So,
No.
yeah, let's just cut it down. Excellent. Okay, so while we're just seeing if there's any other questions coming in, I'm just going to toggle off to the final slide and give everyone a bit of a background on. Obviously, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar session. As I mentioned, when we do exit today, the web page will come up on the screen just with a couple of quick choice questions asking what you thought of today's session. And because you have attended the session, and if you provide feedback to us, you're automatically entitled to a 10% discount on any full STE or S1000D training, whether that's classroom or virtual training. You have the option to attend that training at a 10% discount. You'll of course also receive an email from Samantha indicating that the webinar recording is available as well if you want to revisit that or share that with a friend. And of course, you know, the big benefit is any feedback that you provide improves our webinars. And of course, feel free to also add in there details of another webinar topic that you'd like to see us run. Don't know what happened to the text there, but the 10% discount is for courses that must be paid before 30th of September. So that disappeared, that text. I also wanted to highlight the topic of our next webinar session, announce that today. So that session will be run on US time, Tuesday the 8th of August. And the webinar topic is improving the quality and speed of your S1000D review cycle utilising R4I Writer and R4I Reviewer in that process. So it's a semi-theory, but we use products to demonstrate that process. So that's increasing and improving your quality and speed of the review cycle. So that's the next topic coming up on the 8th of August. Okay, so there doesn't look like there's any other questions in today, Stephen, so which is great. That was fun and interesting, despite, like as people say, it is a relatively dry topic, but I thought that was a pretty interesting session. And as we highlighted, the good news is that issue 7 was well worthwhile, and I think it's they've done a great job of simplifying the specification itself, which is makes it much more usable. So that's all good news on the STE front.
Yes, I agree, Tammy. That's good stuff that they're doing.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing the vision with us today, Stephen. We look forward. I know we've harassed you to also do a little bit of blogging for us on the STE topics as well, so keep an eye out for Stephen doing some writing for us on the blog front on this topic as well, and we look forward to seeing everyone in our session next month also. So thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.